Hey everybody, what's going on? Dace here, and today we are doing another Meet the Player episode, and I'm really excited because I get to talk to Timo. Some of you will know him as Talkerbot on YouTube. How are you doing today, man?
Hey Days, yeah, thank you very much for having me and for the nice introduction.
Yeah, no
Yeah, I'm doing
worries.
fine.
Awesome.
I,
Yeah, I I still like every week or so I still think about that first YouTube video you did, or I think the second one, because I think the first one was just like a little intro and the second one was the rain one. And I fell in love with that video when I first saw it, and since then I've just lapped up like anything you put out. It's just always such a treat for me. So yeah, I'm really excited that we get to do this chat today. So I think what I would love to do is just kind of see how you got into the genre, maybe what your first exposure was, what your first thoughts were when you first saw like either a video or a game someone was playing, or maybe you sampled one yourself. Like, how did you get into things with these games?
yeah, thanks for your kind words.
No
So
worries.
how did I learn about shmups? How did I learn about it? Well, I think the first time I heard about the term shmup as a genre was when I started tinkering with emulation, to be honest, a few years back, because I was looking into different kind of forums on the internet, and people are trying to or recommending different styles of games from the arcade times, right? So, and
Yeah.
there are a lot of shmups inside those lists, and that's when I heard the term for the first time. I was referring to them as some kind of space shooter
Yeah.
type of stuff. I can go into more of the history why I think about it that way. But yeah, that was the first time I really heard about that.
Cool. And did you have like was there anything that gripped you about the visuals or just the idea? Like what like
Mhm.
because I'm like to get into the genre there like everyone is going to have a different thing that kind of just pulls them in, or there's that one thing that they just see and they're like, "Wow, that's so cool. I want to play this now, or I want to see what this is all about." What would you say was the thing for you that got you into that specifically?
Um, so maybe I will expand a little bit on the first part
Yeah,
that I
sure.
said, because I think it's important to know that I'm based in Germany.
Mhm.
And when I recall correctly, a lot of other people you interviewed before said, "Well, I saw shmups in the arcades. I played Raiden or whatsoever." And in Germany, we don't have an arcade scene, to be honest.
Yeah.
So there is no arcade halls or arcade cabinets in Germany, at least not where I grew up, because they forbid it in the mid 80s, I guess. So not forbid, but we have this child protection laws, and they were basically classifying arcade halls we had at that time as gambling, and gambling is only allowed for people well, aged 18. And that's why I couldn't really get into them when I was younger. I was born in 1990, so I missed this time completely. And so I think it's basically it's important to know that I had no arcade exposure. So I may have not the background US players have, for example, or people from other places of the world. Um, but to get back to your question, it correlates a little bit with what my first shmup was, which is, the pick is a little bit unusual, but it was Super Mario Land on the Game Boy.
Oh, interesting.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so the thing is, Super Mario Land has exactly two levels where you playing a shmup. Actually, the one level is underwater. You're sitting in submarine
Mhm.
and shooting seahorses, and the other one is
Nice.
uh, Mario in a plane shooting birds, I think. And yeah, I think it's an unusual pick, but this was the first time I was exposed to something like a shmup. Um, so yeah, and later when I saw this on other consoles, I think when I got my Nintendo Switch, I bought Danmaku Unlimited 3
Oh my
because it
god,
was
so good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was on sale, and I didn't even know what I was getting,
Yeah.
or what I was getting into. And it was mesmerizing because of the art style. I guess it was the art style, and for some weird reason, Japanese developers tend to throw in German names for their ships or for the levels. And there's a level called Sturmvogel, which means in German like a storm bird. So
Yeah.
directly translated, and the mixture of this weirdness, so to say, and the music and the art style was something I was really drawn to, kind of, and that got me thinking. It's not that I directly fell for it and said, okay, I have to play this game
Yeah.
over and over, but it stuck in my mind, and I came back in between other gaming sessions. I came back to the game and I tried to get better. But I think it really clicked for me when I got Ghostblade HD on
Nice.
Switch. Yeah, I got that game, and I don't know why, but I think also the music is something I really enjoy, and you can switch between two versions in arranged mode and normal
Hmm.
sound, and both are pretty nice. And that was the time where I said, okay, this is great, this is cool, and I want to get better. Yeah. So that what I think that those two were the games that introduced me quite a bit.
Yeah, and kind of just like sparked that flame
Yeah.
that has now developed into everything else you've accomplished and
Yes.
are tackling. That's really cool. You mentioning Super Mario Land, I used to have that on Game Boy. I totally forgot about those two stages. But that takes me way back to the 90s. That's so crazy. And I'm fascinated by what you said about the like arcade scene or lack thereof in Germany. Like I would never have known there was that kind of limitation or situation, and it's just interesting because I think like I didn't grow up with an arcade scene personally because I was in a very small town, and wasn't really a part of my reality. But I think every country has like its own way in which things develop or influence, and it's just really fascinating to hear that. So thank you for sharing that. Um, but yeah, there's just touching on Danmaku Unlimited 3. Uh, there's something incredible about that game. Like I had only played Steriden Binary Stars before jumping into DU3, and when I did jump into it finally, like it was unlike anything. Like my eyes were just open to the intensity because I had very little experience with the genre at that point. I had no idea about like the fundamentals. So jumping into that was just like, oh my god, like they're like, what are you supposed to do in here? There's just like all this insanity, and it was just brilliant. The colors, the bullet colors, like the boss designs, just the flow of the stages. It was just mind blowing at the time, and in
Yeah.
ways it still
Yeah.
is. Of course, like you said, it's
Yeah.
mesmerizing. And it what's
Maybe
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe to add, not having an arcade scene has another big impact. I did not understand what those games are supposed to do, because
Hmm.
I was just credit feeding through the games when I mentioned I started this emulation thing,
Yeah.
and I played those games, and I was like, what is this game? What is this game? I'm just going through it. I can put in coins with pressing a button, and
Yeah.
I go through the game, and after 20 minutes it's done. Why would you spend like 10 or 20 or 30
Yeah.
bucks to get
Exactly.
this game? I didn't know anything about 1CCing, that this is actually a thing. I learned that later this year, actually.
Hmm.
And that's why maybe Danmaku Unlimited 3 didn't really click at the first time, because I didn't even know what what the challenge was supposed to be, more or less,
Yeah.
right? I was just putting all these coins in, and saying, yeah, let's continue until I see the final, and then it's done. And then I thought, okay, that's the game.
Yeah.
Now, knowing about a little bit more about the arcade scene, of course, yeah, now I know you want to spend as less money as possible
Yeah.
to beat the game. And it's so interesting because you see the games completely differently. I mean, you play a lot of different games, and stage 3 most of the time is a game changer, and
Oh
in
yeah.
those games, and they are saying like, okay, I can only imagine the devs saying, yeah, okay, you got to stage 3, you did good, but now we will apply some pressure.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
and then the game goes off like really. They needed to make the money, so that's why
Yeah.
it's going so insanely hard.
Yeah, so true. I had
Yeah, but
a very similar experience. Like I knew nothing about the point of the games or 1cc's or anything like that. So I think one thing, like, this isn't in every shmup, but there are a select few where it'll give you like a handful of continues automatically, so you don't actually have to put credits in. You get to continue, you just select yes or no, but you can only do that like a total of 3 or 4 times. So in my earliest phases of playing these games, it was kind of like, oh cool, like I have a clear indication of like what I can shoot for. I want to do it before I get that final game over, and make
yes.
use of the continues that it's giving me. But then when I found out about 1cc's, it was just like, okay, everything makes so much more sense now, because like you need to actually buckle down, study, learn all these different things, and just like really apply yourself. And you need to be resourceful, and you need to just, it really brings out a lot of inner things. Like you need patience, stamina, just like all of this stuff to pull off these games. And it's just, I think it's part of what really clicks with me. There's just like, it just demands so much of you, and I love that about shmups.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's it's really cool. It's something completely different from everything else I played before. I was more like or I am more like a casual player playing RPGs is
Mm-hmm.
something I really like,
Yeah.
or your just casual platforming game. So it's just for me to come down after work and relax. And now I'm well giving into this genre
Yeah.
where each and everything wants to kill me
Yeah.
like from minute one, and sometimes I'm thinking by myself, so oh god damn, why
Yeah.
am I doing this to me? But on the other hand, they did the Dark Souls thing, but before Dark Souls even existed. So, and I
Yeah.
think about it like this: I understand why people like to play Dark Souls. It's not me. It's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand the why people would do the same thing, but with shmups.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing. Like I play all sorts of different games, like RPGs as well. Like you name it, puzzle games or whatever. And shmups are a whole different reality, because like there is no breathing room. You sit down, you start the run, and you have to pay attention. You can't just coast your way. Like it demand, like I said earlier, demands just everything from you. And like if you slip out of that mindset, then that's when the mistakes happen and all this kind of stuff. And there's something really incredible when I think about how, like, I'll just use like Gunnail for an example. Like it's a 15-minute game, and yet you can put hours, tens of hours into just like studying the game, figuring out how each level works, and then like doing actual runs until you clear it at long last, for that first clear or whatever. And like, it's just crazy, because you can play other games, and sure, it might be like a 60-hour RPG, but there are oodles of shmups that are 30 minutes long, and I've put 2 or 3 times the amount of time into like those games. And it's just,
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, and it's just kind of like a a testament to just how well crafted these games are, like just how dense they are. There's just so much to unpack, even though it's a tiny experience. Like it's just, you can dig in deep, and you can just go crazy exploring and experimenting. And that's another thing I just love.
Yeah. So when I got into it at the beginning of the year more intensely, so to say, I found your channel, I found some other channels, and I wanted to start, but my wife and we were going on a trip to London, and I didn't bring my console, so I was just watching these videos, and we were also visiting her parents, and we're hanging out at the place of her parents, and you have on Spotify, and I was listening to it, and I when I was running, and I thought, oh, I want to start right now. I want to start right away. It's so cool. It sounds so cool what those people are talking about. I want to experience it by myself now. And you brought up a good point because I think that's another thing. You have these RPGs. They take like 30 or 40 or 60 or 100 hours to complete or go through the story. And at the beginning of the year, I had some kind of gaming breakdown. I saw my backlog of RPGs and I thought, wow, when shall I play all those games? And when I found out that shmups are only 30 minutes or like 45 minutes,
Yeah.
I thought, okay,
Perfect.
those,
Yeah.
yeah, those are the games that respect my time. I can get a little bit of playing time and then it's okay. So I can, after work, like 1 hour and that's fine. And well, I underestimated a little bit how much time I would spend in the training mode,
Oh,
but
it's so good.
it's worth the time. In the end, when I finally clear a game, I think okay, it's worth the time, and this was one hell of a ride.
Yeah. Oh man, I totally hear that. Like in yeah,
Mm,
it's funny because it's misleading. People could come into the genre thinking like, oh, let's say they don't feel like they have time for the long games, but it's like, well, you're going to be playing just as much of this one game as it might take for a whole RPG. So I think there's something funny about that. Um, so in terms of like your accomplishments, or like I just mean like the
mhm,
things you've cleared, do you feel like
mhm.
sharing a little bit about like what your experiences have been, or like the progression you've noticed within yourself from one game
Yeah,
to the next?
yeah, sure. I think that's also a funny story. And people say Germans are not funny, but I do my very best to get rid of that stereotype. Okay, so when I wanted to start out. I was binge watching a lot of videos.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that was I got so many different map ideas recommended, so to say.
Yeah.
So it's good to start with this. It's good to start with that, and you should buy this. And it was kind of an information overflow. But there was one game that I thought I want to start with. I need that game, and it was Espra Deep Psy,
Yeah.
which was only physical released in Japan. So I created an Amazon Japan account, and
Nice.
because I didn't want to buy it in the eShop, and I ordered it from Amazon Japan, and it took a week, and it came. So I put it in, and I started with super easy mode,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I cleared it on the first or second attempt on the same evening, and I thought, man, I'm a prodigy.
Yeah.
I'm just I just had the killer instinct, you know. I know how to do this.
Yeah.
All these years of playing RPGs somehow prepared me for shmups. So okay. And then I went to normal mode, and yeah, after half the stage, I thought, what?
Yeah.
Where are all these bullets come from? What is this? Yeah, well, needless to say, I came to, I think, stage two, the beginning, and then I thought, okay, maybe that's not the shmup I should start with. And yeah, so long story short, I played Ghostblade HD because
Mm-hmm.
I already had it, and I thought it was a cool game. The easy mode was good to clear, so to say. It was a nice ease in. The training mode is very solid. You can train the stage and the last boss, or not the last boss, the stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boss. I don't know if you can train the boss in the middle. I'm not sure, but the training mode is solid.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of respecting my time, that was perfect for me to just go in and try to get better and try to get better. And this was the first clear where I really felt accomplished, where I really thought, okay, I learned I'm not a prodigy, but this is a good way to start off. And then I tried to dabble with different maps to see what kind of suits my style, or what do I like, which music do I like, horizontal or vertically, or whatever I wanted, and whatever I liked. And yeah, I think the biggest accomplishment and the thing for me was Mushihime-sama 1.5 original. That's the one where I really thought, okay, this is like, I don't know. It's like it was just bursting with joy because I had to dedicate a lot more time into training the game
Mm-hmm.
than I really thought I would ever do, to be honest. Because yeah, I felt that I could do it after like 2 weeks. I had this moment where I went to Twitter and also tweeted, yeah, I think I can do it, but it took 2.5 weeks more of training to really clear the game. And in between those 2 points, I thought I got a mental breakdown or something because I was doing fine. Was going I was able to go to stage 4 or stage 5, and then died, which is okay,
Mm-hmm.
which was perfectly fine because I knew, okay, I had to get better at this and that. And then randomly I started to die at stage 2 or stage 3 in the beginning, and yeah, it was hard, but it was worth practicing through. And for me personally, it was the biggest accomplishment to date. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. Like, I know, like my experience with that game. I think yeah, Mushi was my first cave game,
Mm.
and I put like serious hours into that. And when you finally pull it off, you're just overjoyed. And yeah, it's neat
Yes.
reflecting on just everything that you learned, everything that went into the experience. And I know what you mean when you say like you'll make it to like stage 5 that first time or the first few times or whatever, and it's easy to think that that kind of represents that, oh, you're so close to doing it. But you can
Mm.
have phases where you dip out of that sometimes, and like you said, you're like messing up in the early stages. And I think everyone goes through that. Like, it doesn't really matter what game. Like, I think everyone has that kind of experience from time to time where like little slip ups are just going to happen, and you just got to be willing to continue pushing through and not let that kind of stuff weigh you down and think
Mm.
negatively and stuff like that, because then that just destroys your motivation and everything else. So
Yeah, the good thing was, I think from every run I did, I could pull something out which I
mm-hmm.
had to learn. I knew what the fault was. It was my fault that I didn't use the bomb at this or that specific moment. And yeah, it's just those bombs are lifesavers.
Yeah.
And there's no need to stock them and get greedy
Mm-hmm.
in some situations. But I really had to learn that it was not that easy, especially when you come from games where they have this auto bomb feature.
Yeah.
I think, for example, Dodonpachi Daifukatsu
Mm-hmm.
or Resurrection
Yeah.
does a very good job to introduce people to the genre, I think, except stage 5. That stage is the pinwheels or the wheels at the
Yeah,
end.
the
They
laser
are,
wheels. Just crazy.
yeah, they are just, even in novice mode, they are relentless.
Yeah.
They will get you. They will get you.
Mm-hmm.
It is like it is. So or it is what it is, I think. Yeah, but they're doing a good job to have this autobomb feature, while making sure that you should commit to your own bombs,
Yeah.
so or to using it by yourself because it's more powerful, it has more range.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very good feature, comparable to what you said with the fixed credits or fixed continues in other games, which
Yeah,
is also a good feature, I think.
for sure. Yeah, I really enjoy when they balance like auto bomb to like manual use. Rolling gunner is the same way. That being said, like in original and expert, like in novice and casual, you have like you can take a hit, it will auto bomb, and you'll still have as many bombs as you have remaining. But once you get into original, if you take an auto bomb hit, everything vanishes. Like all your bombs are gone. So like it in ways like it's nice. I like it because it if you do slip up, um, you at least aren't losing a life. But there is that punishment of like, oh well, there go all your bombs. So like it really does
Mm.
teach you to just build your bombing instinct and just be really smart about that kind of stuff. And that's another thing too. Like I love games with bombs, and it's neat to hear that you had to adjust to using bombs because I think a lot of newer players do struggle with uh, kind of like understanding how and when to use bombs. And sometimes, like most of the time, people will just assume it's like for last minute reactions, which can certainly save the day in a lot of situations. But you can always do a lot more by like just planning out specific times to use it when you know you're going to need it, instead of just always waiting for something to happen. So yeah, there are benefits to all sorts of different approaches, but I think in general the point I want to get across is like building the bombing instinct takes serious time. Like one game will give you like a little bit, another game will give you a little bit, and you kind of just build this understanding and this intuition as time goes on. And it's really fascinating to me because like you might think like, okay, I know how to perfectly use bombs in this one game, but like when you get into another game where the bomb mechanics are slightly different, it's like you're starting at the bottom again. You've got to like learn how this new way works to really capitalize on the bombs
Yeah.
and what you have at your disposal. So it's just neat to see
Yeah.
how different games kind of just teach you little bits and pieces, and you, in general, like as you're going into this genre, you're always like kind of just like pulling pieces from all over the place and forming this flow that works for you and like builds your play style and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool. On the other hand, if every game would be the same in terms of bombs or mechanics, it would get boring very fast, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's cool that different games pull from other influences,
Mm-hmm.
and I also think it's very nice that you have to kind of relearn a little bit in different shmups because yeah, on paper they work the same, but from the mechanics they are a little bit different. And I also like how this bombing mechanism or feature is well not evolving but implemented in different ways.
Yeah.
Let's take Gigawing. I don't know, does Gigawing have
That
bombs? Does
that's
it have
a
bombs? I forgot. Maybe
it's been a I played it last year and I don't recall. I feel like
I
it's
think
got
it
to.
has. Yeah, I think it has. So that is a bad example. But I was thinking about the shield mechanic because you had this extra feature which can well just save a bomb, but I think you need to learn when to use the shield effectively,
Yeah.
right? So on the other hand, you have Gun Vein, which had this cool feature that you can collect this bomb fragments and then get a new bomb. So it incentivizes you to go for these collectibles on the
Mm-hmm.
one hand. On the other hand, it incentivizes to bomb because you can only have 3 bombs, and it's a nice yeah, it's just a nice way to implement the feature, and I'd like to see that developers really take care and think about how will this work for my game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very nice to see that.
Yeah, it's something I appreciate about that game too, and how you can use 5 fragments for a different effect entirely. I think that's a great way of kind of like hiding another feature into something that already exists. And I feel they did a fantastic job just even balancing or encouraging the player to bomb more regularly because like you
Mhm.
get so many fragments, whereas sometimes people will go in thinking like, okay, I got to hang on to my bombs, can't use them for anything, but it's just like they're giving you a very clear indication that you are to use them as often as you want, because like by the end of the level you can use like one or two, and then you're topped up again. So it's like, what's the worry? They are there to use. Uh,
Yeah.
so in turn, like, and maybe we've already covered this already, but one of my questions today
Hmm.
is like, what are some of your favorite mechanics so far from the
Hmm.
games you've played?
Um, Auto fire.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
So let me elaborate on this a
Yeah,
little bit.
please do.
Um,
I know one game that you're not crazy about already
mhm.
because of that. But yeah.
I really want to like the new game from Terrarin. It's
Hmm.
Star Gang Gagnant.
Hmm.
I don't know how to pronounce
I'm
it.
not sure either.
I played the demo. I I played the demo. I love the visuals. I think it's a beautiful looking game. It's very reminiscent of those TurboGrafx 16 games that I tried, and I really want something that is like that without a fire
Yeah.
because the the main feature, or I don't know if it's a feature or if it's a gimmick, is you have to press the shoot button to get a more powerful shot. And I think it's a very good idea to honor this guy, this Marvin. I don't know how he's called. I don't know his name, but they wanted to honor his ability to press the button really fast. But your average Joe casual player is not this guy and is not wanting to, I mean, press the button like 16 times a second.
Yeah.
Um, so I played the demo and my hands were cramping. And well, I thought, okay, maybe I can just tap slowly. But well, the inner German who wants to give 110%
Yeah.
refused to only tap the button like, okay, tap, tap, tap. Yeah, and also my wife recognized that I was hammering on my arcade stick like it owes me money and was asking, "What are you doing there? Could you please
God.
calm down a little bit?" I was like, "Okay, I have to deinstall this game." So a really great game, visually, music, but this mechanic is not for me. It's not for me, unfortunately. So I like Autofire. Um, I like the bombing. We touched on that, and I want to give a shout out again to Gunvein because it has a fantastic tutorial mode. To be honest, it has this. Well, I don't know if it's challenge mode or whatever it's called. No, challenge mode might not be correct, but it has a training mode where it teaches you mechanics you can do in every shmup, like manipulating bullets. It's not only,
Hmm.
okay, go from A to B and shoot three ships. It's really, okay, you in this training session, you need to manipulate bullets and you have to go around the screen like 30 times and go to different spots. And as soon as you break this chain to go from one point to another, you have to start all over.
Yeah.
And I did that. I sat there and thought, is it me or do I understand it wrong? Because it took me like 45 minutes to understand what I had to do. Um, when it finally clicked that they are teaching you how to manipulate bullets and get better at those games. And I think this is very exciting for the future because I can only imagine what other devs that play this game will implement into their games, or hopefully they will implement something like this because it helps to bring new players to the genre.
Hmm. And they certainly do their part in kind of just giving people a little extra to work with, because most people, if let's say Gunvein is their first game, they're not going to have any idea, or like anything other than Gunvein that doesn't do like what they did. People might be like, oh well, okay, I know I need to dodge stuff, but like they will have no concept of misdirecting or just these other things. And yeah, Gunvein
Mm.
kind of like fills in some of the blanks or starts people off a little better than pretty much every other game out there that just doesn't offer anything like that. So it's really neat
Mm.
to see they put a little more effort and thought as well into
Yeah,
their project.
yeah, and well, if I think about other mechanics. I think, well, I'm give me something that grew on me over time,
Hmm.
because it only has the auto fire, it has the beam, the laser, so you go slower,
Yeah.
and it has a bomb, and it was enough to, well, to catch my attention and to keep me uh, keep me playing. And I know that some people say, "Oh no, I need this mechanic, I need that mechanic," but this is exactly what prevents me right now from playing Radiant Silvergun. I saw the game, I saw this sword mechanic, and I thought, yes, this is what I want to play.
Hmm.
I already have it, I bought it, but I just tested it a little bit because you have to know what buttons to press, and it's more like a fighting game, or not a fighting game, but you have to press these different button combinations to fire the homing missiles, or your straight, or your spread shot, and use your sword, and so on and so on. And I think it's cool, it's fine, but it takes even more time to process and to
Yeah.
learn how to use that, because it's like a bomb. You have the bomb mechanic, and you have all those other mechanics surrounding the game, and yeah, well, I think it takes some serious learning time and has a steep learning curve.
Yeah, it's certainly more involved compared to other games.
Mhm.
Um, so another thing I'm kind of wondering about, I just want to double check my list here. Okay, what? Because yeah, I want to make sure I don't miss anything. What would you say has been your biggest struggle? And I don't necessarily mean like which game, but just like the thing about these games in general that kind of has tripped you up the most, or you had to really improve it, or whatever the case was. Does anything come to mind for that?
Yeah, I think there are several things in my mind. So it started very basic with,
Mm-hmm.
where do I want to start? So which game to start with, because it was a self-made problem, right? So
Yeah.
I had to find a starting point. So yeah, that's a personal problem I made by myself. So in terms of the games itself, we touched on using your resources,
Mm-hmm.
which is a pretty big hurdle, because um, I saw some runs, and the players are obviously pretty good, and they can stock their bombs to the true last boss, and this is not my skill level, of course. So I had to learn that those bombs are not there to, well, to collect, to have. They're there to be used, because they are your lifesavers, and when in doubt, bomb it out. So,
Yeah.
but it was something I really have to remind myself, even during the runs when I did well. I remember Moshihime-sama last stage. I was doing pretty well going into the stage. I had 2 lives and like 2 or 3 bombs, and I thought this thing is basically done if I remember to bomb,
Yeah.
and bomb preemptively. And it was a phenomenal run where the stars aligned, and I already saw myself going over the finish line, building up the
Nice.
microphone and commentating the run.
Yeah.
And then I forgot to bomb and died. So,
Oh man.
and I was sitting there afterwards and thought, oh God, no, why? Why did I just don't bomb? I
Yeah.
don't understand. But yeah, I mean, it took a few more days, and then I did it. So that's definitely something I had to learn, and right now I think I'm struggling with pattern manipulation. Something I want to practice a little more,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not as easy as it sounds, at least for me right now. Yeah, and another personal problem might be that when the run goes very well, I start to commentate the run in my head already,
Yeah.
which which leads to, well, inconsistency and fumbles.
Hmm.
And from time to time, this can be helpful because you're going into the run more relaxed, or you're doing the rest more relaxed because you think, okay, I won't clear the game anyway. But yeah, I think that's a thing I have to work on, not to yeah get hyped too soon.
Yeah.
So bring it over the finish line and then get hyped.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, or there will be times where like you've been to the final boss a handful of times and there's just something about the current run you're playing where you're just like, okay, I know this is it. Like no matter what I do, like there's no way I can mess it up. And that's where it's kind of just like, okay, like yeah, you just like deep down you just know. I've had that a
Mm,
number of times in certain games where I wasn't expecting it to be cleared as soon. Like I knew it was close or whatever,
mm,
but you just get into that state and then you're just there and you're like, okay, this is it. Like the
mm.
only way I could not clear it is if I set the controller down right now. Uh, um,
Yeah, yeah, I had that as well at some bosses. It's not only the last are quite confident.
mhm.
Uh, yeah, you're confident, and then you get a little bit cocky and say, yeah, I know what's coming up, but you
Yeah.
misposition just as a pixel or two,
Mhm.
and the pattern looks a little bit different. It's just a minor bullets, but yeah, it can trip you up pretty bad if you're not giving your all, if you're not focused.
Yeah. 100%. Um, so I suppose we could kind of like based on what we chatted about
Mhm.
yesterday, I think it was, or the day before. You had some topics you'd love to get into, and I would love to hear about that. So maybe we could even transition into that a little bit now. I think the first thing kind of related to like how you apply aspects of like what you do for work to the genre and kind of like focusing on like how to offer more value or like what people are after. Do you want to kind of just like take the lead and just
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
sure.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. So um, I I am a well, how to say it? I'm an innovation strategist,
Hmm.
so to say, and I am I'm not in marketing. I'm more in product development. So I'm not. My mindset is not how can I well use ads to sell more of my products. For me, it's more like the mindset, what do my customers need so I can improve the product so they get something that's really valuable for them, and they use it and they want to use it and they want to spend money on the product.
Hmm.
And in terms of YouTube, I am thinking, what can I bring to the table to increase the value of the people who listen to what what I'm showing or what I'm talking about. Do they just want to be entertained, or do they want to know more about the mindset or about the strategy? Or this is something I'm really thinking a lot about, because I try to combine both elements. So I try to combine getting into shmups with doing YouTube, because I had the desire to do it, to have a creative outlet.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, when I go into shmups and I can commentate it, and I can maybe talk about how I train for those games, I think that would be a nice match. But I'm still thinking about, what do people really want to see or to hear, or um, maybe what are their gaming struggles, for example, or their shop struggles, or what are they enjoying, so you
Yeah.
can pull something out of this and put it into your content or my content, or every other one's content. So people get more value out of committing time to watching those videos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic kind of focus to have, and it was the same for me. Like when I got into shmups and and realized like I wasn't really watching much, if anything, on
Mhm.
YouTube. Like I didn't get into channels or anything like that. When I got into the games, it was just me playing games, and that was it.
Mhm.
Um, but when I did kind of like make some acquaintances and some friends or whatever who had like they were putting runs up and stuff like that. It was like really cool. But then very quickly I realized everywhere I look on YouTube, the only thing that I'm seeing are like 1cc runs and no commentary. Like, and as great and as useful as that can be for certain people, for the most part, like it doesn't tell the audience much. Like for someone who's just getting into the games or they need or want information, there's very little of that in these videos. If you don't know what
Mhm.
to look for, you don't know how to process what you're seeing visually in the game and make sense of that kind of stuff, it's just like, okay, you're just
Mhm.
watching a run and it doesn't necessarily mean anything to you. So that's kind of like what inspired me to start thinking about like mindset episodes and commentating
Mhm.
runs and just kind of share the things that I felt I would like to hear if I was listening to others, like just what was their experience like, what did they struggle with, that kind of stuff. So it's neat to hear that you want to kind of like bring certain things to the forefront, give more people more value, more to work with, because I do feel like there are some pretty major holes in the genre. In terms of like YouTube videos specifically and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Um, so like,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think you had also mentioned that like you do have a series of some sort planned for your channel. Does that tie into what we just talked about as well?
Yeah, it ties in perfectly
Okay,
actually
cool.
because yeah, so let's transition over to this a little bit. Um, it is obviously very dependent on what people want to hear
Hmm.
or interested in. So that's why um, it would be really cool if some people who listen to this use the comment section and well reflect on, okay, what are they enjoying, what are they struggling with, what do they want to see in the future, and just comment. So you guys have a task now,
Yeah.
and and I think it's cool to see those likes coming in and those comments. As a creator, I think it yeah, it makes you proud, and it's cool to interact with other people that are like minded.
Hmm.
Um, and what I'm very happy about and thankful for is something that I don't want to say pioneered, but what makes you and your content very unique is this mindset topic. And I think the more people talk about the more other people can learn, of course,
Hmm.
about the genre and how to stay focused and how to don't get frustrated.
Yeah.
Um, what I always read or where I see a need is, for example, um, how to make action items out of this,
Yeah.
right? Because you often hear, okay, you just have to approach it differently, or you just have to think differently. You have to, um, take your fumbles as journeys, or you name it a little bit, is kind of action items. So what can I actually do? So what can I do to improve? Um, you might have heard it or heard these discussions. Oh, I'm too old. I don't have the reactions, or I am not good enough to play this kind of games. I don't see the bullets, or I don't know. There are several, I don't want to call it excuses, but I think you and I, we know that it's experience. It's
Yeah.
most of the time it's experience you need to gather with those games. But there are also action items you can do to avoid stuff like this,
Yeah.
because You know, your brain is like a muscle; it can be trained.
Hmm.
It is possible to train your train your brain. You don't need to be in this kind of mindset to say, well, I'm not good enough for shmups. Everyone is good enough for them. You just need to commit some time and use a little trick here and there. And that's what I want to incorporate in this videos. For example, to give very small action items you can do to improve a little bit, right? Every day, just improve on different topics just a little bit each and every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic, and I really look forward to seeing those whenever you like time allows and you're able to get that kind of stuff out, because I know you're very busy in life, and but it's great because, like you mentioned, like for people who have put any sort of time into these games, you'll like they already know that, like, okay, there is that possibility. You just have to be the one to believe in yourself and to put the work in, put the time in. And I think in ways it's easy for people outside of the genre to kind of not give themselves enough credit because like they've played games for, let's say, decades, but and in ways maybe there's a part of them that thinks like, okay, well, I've been playing games forever. Why am I like not doing so well in shmups? And it's you got to realize, like, it doesn't matter how many other types of games you've played. If you have never learned shmups, you're going to get nowhere. You just more or less need to remain humble and just start from the bottom, and or wherever your entry point is, where like you kind of fit in and start to understand and progress. Like you need to accept that you're starting somewhere, and that's what it is. You like, I think the amount of the people that I've like spoken to that have had like one reason or another for why they think they can't, or they like just whatever the case is, like it usually boils down to like they haven't put the time in, they haven't kind of had a taste for progress yet because they haven't played enough games, or they've kind of already made up their mind ahead of time, or they just think the games are too crazy without realizing that there are actually simple ways to like break down what's happening on screen. And when you kind of have that awareness, and because you're open to it, or you're researching it, and you're putting your intention and your time and all this into it, like when you do that, that's when it's like, oh wow, these games are not as complex and crazy as I thought. It's I think in the first episode of this series, actually, when I talked to Bare Knuckle Roo, him and I touched on, I think he was the one that brought it up, but it's something that I think about often. And it's just that, like, when you see all these bullets on screen, most of the time, very few of those are actually headed toward your ship. Everything else is kind of just part of a pattern, but it's not actually coming at you. It's just spreading out, or whatever the case is. So while it may look intimidating and this and that, most of it is just there to be a distraction or to be a danger. But you can kind of like filter that out of your mind, because you know, like, okay, if there is like a tri-pronged attack heading your way, well, guess what? The middle one is probably the thing that's targeting you, and you can ignore the rest, or like just focus on the space between. So that's the thing that's kind of like wild about shmups, though. It's like there are all these things that kind of trick your mind, and the games are meant to be that way. But of course, new people coming into that are just going to kind of feel intimidated, or just kind of like shut themselves down before even giving themselves a fair chance.
Yeah, I think what I learned about myself while playing shmups for like the last 4 or 5 months is like what you mentioned. You have this bullet pattern, this massive wall of bullets coming to you. When I first saw something like this, I was the same way. I thought, oh, okay, this is not gonna work. I have to do something. So I just wiggled the stick and tried to go anywhere. So, and of course it didn't work. If you get more experienced, you blend out a lot of those bullets. And what I also learned was my my body was reacting differently. When I saw this wall of bullets, I stopped breathing. I hold my breath and try to get through there, which is basically a mistake.
Yeah.
So you can basically incorporate stuff like breathing techniques. For example, this is something I wanted to touch on in this series. You can use breathing techniques to just keep you calm,
Mm-hmm.
to reduce the amount of fumbles. But you need to recognize that your body reacts differently when you play those games. But maybe other people don't have this problem at all. So um, everyone is different playing those games, of course. But yeah, there's stuff you can do. There's stuff you can learn to, or you will learn eventually when you play these games, that help you out to get better, step by step.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I think one of the key takeaways, like, doesn't matter who I talk to or like whatever, uh, one of the most important things is just realizing that most of the time, all you're going to see on YouTube are like the runs that cleared it. You're never going to see the million runs that didn't make it, or like the whole journey of learning and mistakes just to get there. And I think it's easy for new players to kind of see those shiny clears and think like, oh wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's how someone should be playing. Like that's how, like in ways
Yes.
they kind of expect that they should be doing that or able to do that.
Mm.
But it's just like, no, you've got to, like there are all the different things you got to learn and put into practice, and it's a gradual, like you said, gradual. Um, it's a step by step process, and everyone is
Mm.
going to have different things they need to improve or overcome or whatever the case is, and it's not something to like. I think in ways like sure when we sit down because we want to clear a game, like that's the end goal, but at the same time, I think it's far more important to just realize that most of what you're going to get out of the experience is not the clear. That's like a small percentage of the overall experience. The important stuff that you're actually going to extract is all the observations, all the skill improvements, like the even things like patience, like just building that and increasing that, and your endurance and just all that stuff. Like that's the true value because you can take that from the experience and you have it then. Whereas like getting a
Mm.
clear, it's like, okay, cool, you accomplished your goal, but it's like it's the journey itself that has the true value, and
Yes,
is a huge
I
part
agree.
of that. So
Mm.
yeah, like I don't want to keep you too long. So uh, like you're more than welcome to keep going if you have anything you want to
Sure.
share, or uh, we can leave off there for now. It's up to
Yeah,
you.
I think it's the last thing you said was no. I mean, I have some more spare time, so
Okay, sweet.
I don't want to occupy too much of your time. But it reminded me of the episode. No, not it was not your episode with Eric from Arcade Hell. It was another video I watched from Eric where he mentioned that um, if you're in doubt, if you get anywhere with your training, for example, and it came to the perfect time for the perfect time when I was trying to clear Mushihime-sama.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I did this version 1.5, and you look into the video, at the beginning I show my scoring, and it has like 18 or 20 entries, and I didn't even saved every run I did.
Yeah.
But you can see that it takes a lot of attempts to clear. That's the first thing. But Eric mentioned if you look at the scoring, you see that you're getting better. You get more confident because you get more points when you spend time or killing enemies point blank, right?
Yeah.
More in front of the. So you get more points, and I could see, okay, every run I'm doing has more points. So it seems like I'm improving. I'm getting more confident. I'm taking more risks. Do I need to take those risks? Maybe not. Maybe I can go a little bit. So this is the thought process. What you just mentioned. Your experience to clear the game comes from everything you soak in during your training.
Yeah.
It's very, very easy to just focus on the negative things. Oh,
Hmm.
I died there again, and oh, I forgot to bomb,
Yeah.
and
Or
so
like,
on and so on.
yeah, or you haven't cleared the game yet after weeks. It's like,
Yeah,
why am I not clearing this?
yeah. It's very easy to get lost in all this negative thoughts,
Hmm.
but you don't necessarily need to. If you take your time and make small goals and look at what you achieved each day, you can set very small goals and look at it and try to reflect on it and see, oh, okay, I can go to stage 3 without bombing, for example,
Hmm.
right? So I have a perfect starting situation in stage 3, and I can do this consistently. This is more than I could do 1.5 weeks ago,
Yeah.
where I died at the stage 2 mid boss, for example. And this is something I use as some kind of anchors in my mind
Hmm.
to stay motivated and
Yeah.
take it step by step.
Yeah. And I think those, like, just anchors, that idea is very, very important too, because, and I've talked about this before and in some of the other interviews, like, you, like, to stay on top of yourself and these games and just how insanely ruthless they are, you need to focus on the small victories and the things that you learn. Or even, like, even if you're just taking one little thing from a 2 hour session or whatever, as long as you can find one thing that you can put into practice or that you can use to your advantage, like, you have to celebrate that kind of stuff, because, like, otherwise, if you have a night where all your runs are just, they go nowhere, and you're focusing on the negative because that's, like, just the habit you're in, you might as well not even play shmups, because, like, it's not going anywhere pretty. It's just kind of leading
Mm,
to a miserable place where it's like you're not
yeah,
feeling fulfilled, or you're playing for reasons that are not the healthiest, or you're just forcing yourself and blah blah blah. Like,
yeah,
you got to be able to pick out the positive things. I feel there's really something to that.
yeah.
And from your rain episode, there's something that has never left my mind ever since you said it in that video. It was that you mentioned you want to play to learn, and I think that is such a perfect and beautiful way of just reminding, uh, whether someone is a new player or an experienced player, that it's not about trying to clear it. Like, that's going to happen when you're ready, when your skills have matured to the point where you can
Mm,
clear it. But when you are kind of taking a step back and just playing to learn, the focus will always be on, like, okay, what did I learn today? How can I use that? What am I missing? What am I not paying close attention to? Like, all these things. So when you make the focus about learning, then it doesn't matter how many mistakes you make. It's like, that's valuable information. Those are the moments where
mhm.
you can actually take stuff and start working with it, and you can be more constructive, have like a constructive, more positive mindset and approach to these games. And I think that helps people excel far more than kind of focusing on the finish line and making that the big thing that they go for.
Mm. Yeah, one good example for this was also Mushihime-sama. Sorry that I have to reference
It's all
that
good.
game each and every time, but it is right now my favorite game because it grew it grew much on me over time. I didn't like it at first, but over time it grew on me. There is this stage 4. There you're in a cave,
Hmm.
and there is this mid boss, and I remember that I watched some other runs to get a little bit inspiration
Yeah.
because I was trying and learning and doing, and I thought, okay, maybe I should take a look. I normally try to do it my way and try
Yeah.
to solve things without consulting anyone or any video. Um, and I saw that nearly everyone was bombing there a specific pattern.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the third pattern or something like this, because it was too inconsistent for them to deal with it. But I needed the bomb.
Yeah.
I thought okay, somewhere I need to save a bomb because I need it at another point because I'm not good enough at another specific point in stage 3 or somewhere. So I need to save this specific bomb. I need to find a way. And so I was just trying different ways to learn how to save this bomb and to deal with this pattern so I can save it. And I came up with a method. And after I posted the video, someone was writing, and I never saw this. I would try it by myself. And that was the first time where I thought, okay, I can create value in any kind
Yeah,
in some
absolutely.
kind of way. So
Mm-hmm.
I can inspire people to do it another way they didn't saw before, and that was really powerful for me because it was this run, it was this clear that hyped me up, and then I got this comment under the video, and I thought, yeah, that's nice, that's cool, that keeps me going.
I'm glad you shared that because another thing that I've noticed about the community or like the communities within like shmup is that a lot of newer players will be reluctant to do videos. They will be reluctant to share their findings or the things they have to share, like just whatever it is. And it's great to see more and more newer players starting to do this kind of stuff. And the fact that you had like a positive feedback like that from something, uh, it just in ways it just goes to show that it's like people don't need to just look at the best players or whatever, the biggest channels and that kind of stuff for the answers. Because sometimes there will just be fresh ideas from less experienced
Mhm.
players. And it's just like if that helps someone else, then that's awesome. And I think
Yes.
there's a lot that newer players can share because they have that fresh perspective or they're so new to it so they have a different view entirely on different aspects of
Mhm.
these games that like once you've kind of been out of your novice state, you're like a more experienced player, uh, as much as like we may want to feel like we can still relate, there's still going to be that part that is just kind of beyond that and just in a whole other realm. So it's like it's great to see because like I think there's a lot of benefit for that kind of material to come out. And like I said earlier, I'm just stoked to see what else you share because it's always just a blast when your videos go up. So
Yeah, thank you
yeah.
very much.
Yeah, no worries.
I hope to release some new videos too. Have this might care. I think I will just give it a shot because something was just running through my mind. If anyone is listening to this thinking, well, I want to do it as well. I want to share my videos as well, but my setup is not ideal, or I have a old microphone, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There are enough people in this community. That's what I learned. There are enough people in this community that have you back, that will
Yeah.
watch your videos anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They will comment. They will tell you what you can do better, or they will just be excited that there's a new face that or a new voice that will share their story. And I think it's good for the community because it's so niche inside the gaming community right now, that it's important that people try to share more of their experiences. And it doesn't matter if it's a 110% setup or if it's just a 70% setup.
Mm-hmm.
Just load it up, and there will be a Days or a Timo or a Eric from Arcade Hell or whoever who will watch the video, and they won't blame you for having not the best video quality or whatever. They're
Yeah.
just excited to see someone new.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. Like everybody in the like obviously exceptions whatever, but for the most part everyone is just so passionate that it's not even about the games, it's not about the visuals or like thinking someone has to have something fancy to say or whatever. It's just if someone else is excited, that's awesome, and if they're willing to share that and they can just get behind putting their voice or their face or whatever out there publicly, it's like, yeah, people are going to love that kind of stuff. They're going to soak that up because it's just
Mm-hmm.
it's one more person that's being open about something we are all excited and, yeah, passionate about. So yeah,
Yes, definitely.
yeah. So I suppose we could probably leave off there for now. Are there any like final thoughts you would give to newer players just getting into these games? If there's like one or two things that come to mind specifically.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think don't overthink the starting point, but yeah, everyone needs to start the journey by him or herself. It's important that you like what you play, and you have just to try different stuff. And don't get discouraged because these games are meant to be hard because of their history. It's something I had to learn by myself. I had to read up because I had no arcade scene near my hometown, which was also very small, and I don't even knew what a 1cc was. So don't get discouraged. They are meant to be hard, but they are perfectly playable.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and if you then want to take one step further and share your thoughts on Twitter or on YouTube or wherever, that would be perfect because it gives us more food for thought. It gives us more things to talk about and to be excited about, and yeah, well, to help each other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I think that's fantastic to hear. So, yeah, a huge thanks for setting aside time to chat with me today, Timo. I really appreciate it, and I've been looking forward to this for quite a while because I think even some months ago, I think we first talked about eventually getting around to this. So it's great to finally do this, and so thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it, and yeah, I just want to thank everybody who has listened today or watched or whatever the case is. Um, yeah, I really appreciate all the support. And like Timo said earlier, leave your thoughts in the comments on the topics and whatnot that we got into. But yeah, thank you again, everybody, and we will see you next time.
thank you very much, guys.